Hello everyone. This is Alex. We are on Codetober and we are on day 14. In the last video, day 13, yesterday, I showed you how to create the 3 different projects for experience, process, and system layers, and how to run them at the same time, which was basically doing run and then run configurations, and you would be able to have them all here inside one configuration, and just by selecting all of them, you will be able to run them all at the same time. Now, the important thing was to select the HTTP port that would be here, right? And then I said that I was going to help you create the connections between the 3 layers here with using HTTP. So you could just see how it is done in case you have any questions about that. But before that, today I want to focus on using best practices and creating the best practices in all 3 of these projects, because in the last video, I kind of didn't use any best practices at all. So I now want to do that. So before we jump into like doing the HTTP requests and everything and connecting the 3 layers and all, first I'm gonna prepare these projects for best practices. So I'm gonna do this in just one of the projects, doesn't matter which one, and then you can just go ahead and replicate the same process in all 3 of these projects. So first of all, I am gonna separate the global elements. Remember, we had here an HTTP listener config because we created an HTTP listener right here, which needs a configuration, which is here in the global elements. Or if you take a look at the configuration XML, you will be able to see here that we have the flow, and outside of the flow, we have the HTTP listener config, which is the global element. So I did mention a little bit about this, that you should create a new Mule configuration file. And I am gonna name this global.xml because that's the naming convention that I usually, that I'm used to, I guess. So global.xml, now we are here, and now we can set up the global elements. I am gonna do this in the XML just because it's easier for me, but you are free to copy and paste everything from the global elements tab. So if I go here, again, I said, just take the HTTP listener. This will leave the flow just like that. So then go back to your global XML file and just paste it right here. This is just asking me if I want to regenerate the IDs. I'm just gonna say yes. And now here we have it. So if we save this first and then save this second, or whichever, now we won't have any issues. This has to go away. Let me just save this again. Yes, there we go. So now we have the HTTP listener config right here in the global file. And in the main file, we just have the flow, but we don't have any global elements. So that's the first thing that you are going to do in the 3 of them. After that, let's create some properties. So I'm gonna create a new file inside source main resources, and I'm gonna name this local.properties. Now, in this case, you can create properties using YAML files instead of .properties files, but I am old school, so I'm just gonna go ahead and select .properties. So local.properties is one, and then we're gonna create dev.properties as well. There we have it. So now we have these 2 properties. I'm not gonna add more because I don't have any more environments. I just have local and dev, which is going to be CloudHub pretty much. And then if I open my main file once again, I can either check on the graphical view if I double click on the listener, and if I if I click here on edit, oh, you cannot see it. Well, just trust me, if you click on the edit button, then you will be able to open this HTTP listener config, or you can just go ahead and go to the global.xml file that you just created, and here you have the global element. You can just double click on it to open the thing. And here we will be changing the port and the host. Or if you just want to use the configuration XML because it's easier to visualize, you can also just change here the port and the host. Anyway, if we go back to local.properties, let's create 2 properties. One is going to be http.port, and this is 8081. And the second one is http.host0000. So I'm gonna copy this and put it in the dev properties as well. There we have it. Awesome. So now I can copy this HTTP port, for example, and here instead of using this port, I'm just gonna use this syntax, which is the curly brackets and the $sign. And here inside, you can put http.port, the same thing for this other part. Now we have host, http.host. And again, if you don't want to do this here, you can also go to the global elements tab and you can do it in the graphical view. So just to confirm, this is correctly, the host is http.host and the port is http.port. So we are all good. Now let me replicate all of this in the other two projects because I kind of want to go through the local and dev properties with you all so we are all on the same page. All right, so now if we go to the first one was Xcode, which we had 8081 for both of them, right? So if I check the properties, dev.properties has 8081 and local.properties also has 8081. That's fine. But then if we go to, let's say, pCodeTover, which is a process layer, and we check out the dev and the local properties, there. So dev.properties is gonna stay as HTTP port 8081 and HTTP host 0000. So we're gonna leave that. But then on the local properties, this is gonna change in order for us to run it locally. So if I check the global.xml file, here we were using 8082. So we are gonna change this to 8082, and then we are gonna replace the properties once again, just the same as we did before. And finally, scodetover, which is the system layer. In dev.properties, we remain with HTTP port 8081, but now in local.properties, here we were using 8083. So if I put all of my local.properties side by side, one, the X one, or whichever one, honestly, one is gonna be 8081, one is gonna be 8082, and one is gonna be 8083. And all of the dev.properties are gonna stay as 8081 because once this is deployed to the cloud, then all of the ports can be the same. It's only in your local where it makes a difference. All right, now the last step is for us to tell the Mule application to actually take these variables. So if we go to the global.xml in global elements, first we have to create a new global configuration called configuration properties. So select that, and then inside here it's gonna ask you for a file. And we are gonna write, because it depends, right? It can take either dev.properties or local.properties. So we are gonna do this. So it's basically telling, depending on the environment, it's gonna be a property. Depending on the environment, take the .properties file within the environment. So either the local or the dev. So save that and then click on create once again, and now select a global property. Now we are gonna name this property env. You saw from the last thing that we just did. And in this case, it's gonna be local. Once we deploy this to CloudHub, then we're gonna change this property in CloudHub to be dev instead of local. But as long as we are running this from your local, it's gonna take the env environment from here, which is local, and it's gonna take the local.properties files. Sweet. And that is all. Now make sure you do these configurations in all three of the files. Make sure the ports are different. And I will see you in the next video tomorrow to actually connect them now. Thank you so much for coming to day 14, and I will see you tomorrow on day 15. Bye.